Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're finally putting the nail in the coffin and seeing which spec in sailorpiece is the best. This is going to be the most thorough testing you've ever seen in any YouTube video on sailorpiece. Let's get straight into it. Alright guys, to finally determine which weapon is the best, we're going to be going by a few metrics here. Number one is total damage, so we'll be adding up all the damage that comes from each move in the moveset into one, and we're gonna find out which weapon has the highest total damage. Second is the DPS. This will include the animation time, which we will time, and then we're gonna divide that total damage by the time at the very end. Alright guys, let's start off with the swords. So the build that we're gonna be using is Luckborn Race, the best accessory in the game, E10, Emperor trait, Primordial Rune, Frostbane Clan, and Demonic Bloodline with the best title in the game, Demon Dweller title, plus 100% damage. And for the passive we're going to be using the Colossus power, which I have equipped, and we're going to be using the Rampage spec passive on our sword. The four swords that we're going to be testing today are Anti-Magic, Dragon Goddess, 2 from C2, and 2 from C1, so Great Mage and Ice Queen. Let's get on with it. Alright guys, let's start off with one of the C1 weapons from the new Easter event, the Great Mage. And just as a side note, Rampage will be switched out and applied to every weapon in the game. Alright, we're going to start off with the Z move. These are our current stats right now. Take a look. Alright. Good amount of damage. X move. Nice. Alright, C move. Alright, we're gonna have to move back a lot for this V move because it has a massive hitbox. We're gonna avoid hitting the NPCs over there. Alright, there we are. It didn't hit the NPCs because you didn't see any drops pop up, which is good. Alright, let's try the F move now. That is a good amount of damage as well. Alright, that's the Great Mage done. Alright guys, now we're moving on to the Ice Queen, starting off with the Z move. Nice damage. X move. Pretty decent. C move. Wow, that's a massive increase right there. And for the V move, we have to move a bit further away. It's quite good damage as well. Alright, F move, we're gonna stay over here. Hopefully it doesn't hit any NPCs. Wow, that's pretty insane damage for a C1 weapon. Alright, now moving on to the C2 weapons. Next up on the chopping block, Anti-Magic, the newest C2 weapon. Let's start off with the Z move. Ooh, it's already starting to look a little lacking. X move. Yep, it's definitely not as good, but we'll try with the C move next. I think it might have just missed a crit, so we will try again. Yep, there we go. Not bad. V move, might have to move a bit further. Try this. Very cool animation. So that's 100 plus 100. I'll add it up during editing, but probably 204 billion. That's what I saw. Let's try the F move. Not bad, actually. Alright, that's done with us, and on to the next supposedly best sword in the game. Alright, next up is the Dragon Goddess Sword. Starting off with a Z move. Nice. X move. Little lacking in the X move. We'll try the C now. Pretty good damage for the C move. We'll have to move back quite a bit for the V move, I believe. Very good damage on that V move. Now we're going to try the F move. Wow, there we are. The highest damage, I believe, out of all of them so far, by a little bit. Okay, on to the melees now. Moving on to the melees, we're going to be using this build. So, Warlord race instead of Luckborn, because it actually has a higher melee damage multiplier, but you should be using Luckborn for everything else. Same accessory, trait, and rune. But we're going to be using Upper Clan instead of the usual Alter Clan, because Alter Clan has a passive where every 5 moves you get a 1.5x damage boost on your next move, which will distort the numbers a little bit. And then for Bloodline, we're going to be using Primordial. Same title, and we're also going to be applying Rampage to all of the melees as well. And the total stats, as you can see here, around the same as the sword stats, so it will be quite fair. So the different melees we're going to be testing today are going to be Cosmic Being and the World for C2, and we're going to use 2 C1s, Moonslayer and Shinobi, Stronger Shinobi. Alright, let's get that started. Alright, starting off with one of my favorite specs in the game, Stronger Shinobi. Let's start off with a Z. Decent amount of damage. We'll go with the X now. Very low damage compared to C2 swords, that's for sure. We go with the C. Not bad, but not good either. For the V move, we're going to have to stand a bit back because it has a big AoE. Hopefully it doesn't hit any of the NPCs on the side there. Not bad damage. Alright, let's do the F move. Such a cool move. Get a whole Susanoo. Very nice damage. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Next up on the chopping block, we have Moonslayer. So let's start off with the Z move. Quite a good amount of damage on that Z move. Alright, X move. Also similar damage. C move. Quite a decent amount. Alright, let's go with the V move, standing a bit further back. Wow, that actually did a pretty decent amount. Okay, F move, stand a bit more further back. Just a tiny little bit higher than the Strong Shinobi. Alright, we're gonna go on the C2 melees now. Alright, starting off with the World. Alright, we're gonna do the Z move. Very decent damage. I think I might have missed some crits, so I'm gonna try that again. Yeah, it did miss one, I think, so that'll be our final damage. X move is next up. Not bad. C move. Not bad at all. Alright, let's try the V move, standing quite far back, because it has a massive AoE. Yeah, that's some ridiculous damage for a V move. Alright, standing even further back, we're gonna try the F move. It's still hitting. Amazing. Pretty crazy damage right there, but not as good as some of the other swords, I think. Alright, moving on to the next one. Next up, Cosmic Being. Start with the Z move. Not bad. X move. Also, not bad at all. C move. Bill is not bad at all. Alright, V move. We're gonna start off from quite a bit far back because it has a massive AoE. Oh my goodness, it still hit the damn NPCs. Okay. We're gonna have to move even further back to this one. That's why this is the best farming spec in the game right now. But yeah, we'll move around this far back and hopefully it doesn't hit any of them. Not that good damage compared to the world, but let's try the F move. Alright, not bad at all. Alright, that's all of the melees done. Now that we've finished all the total damage testing, we can calculate the DPS. So what I've done is I've gone through every single animation and I have timed it from start to finish, then tallied up the total for every single weapon, which I'll show on screen right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the total damage and then divide it by the total animation time of every single spec. And now I will show you the total results for every single weapon on the screen for DPS. Alright, now that's done, we can finally do the rankings. Now that we've finished the DPS testing, we can get on to ranking every single weapon by their DPS and total damage. Starting off with the swords, at rank 1 we have Great Mage with a 990.9 billion total damage. But for some reason the devs made this spec so weird because it can vary in damage from 920 to 1 trillion total damage from further testing. So I don't know what they did, but it's always different every time you use a move. Next up, rank 2 is Dragon Goddess at 963.1 billion total damage. Rank 3 is Anti-Magic or Asta at 948.1 billion damage. And then last, it is Ice Queen at 921.2 billion damage. Onto the melees ranked by total damage. Rank 1 is Cosmic Being at 917.2 billion damage. Rank 2 is The World at 903.9 billion damage. And then rank 3 is Moonslayer at 737.3 billion damage. And last is Shinobi, Strongest Shinobi at 639.2. So there's a massive jump from The World down to the Moon and Shinobi. Next up, we're going to be ranking each by their DPS totals. So for swords, rank 1 is going to be Castoris at a whopping 41.6 billion damage per second, which eclipses the rank 2, which is Great Mage at 33.4 billion damage per second. Then rank 3 will be Asta at 27.1 billion damage per second. And then last again, Ice Queen at 23.7 billion damage per second. Next we have the melees ranked by DPS, so we've got to switch up in places. Rank 1 is now The World at 29.8 billion damage per second. Rank 2 is Cosmic Being at 26.3 billion damage per second. Then third is Moonslayer at 24.8 billion damage per second. And last is Shinobi by a long shot, Strongest Shinobi at 18.9 billion damage per second. Thank you for watching, guys. That's the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, drop a comment, leave a like or leave a sub, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good day.